Welcome to Category 5 Technology TV. It's episode number 616. So nice to see you. And this...
Sasha,
Yes?
where's your computer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
You always have
How are
a
you going to
computer.
follow the chat room and do all those kinds of things?
I need a computer.
Oh,
Here, let me hook you up.
what?
Check out this little SBC.
That's not a computer. That's a Tic Tac.
computer. Yep,
It's
that's
going to
computer.
make me look huge.
This little thing is a single board computer. We've got Bo here from ameriDroid, who's going to be showing us some of the exciting things that he has brought in his bag.
That's exciting enough.
And that is pretty cool. We're going to learn what that one is, as well as some other things, and find out how single board computers are revolutionizing the enterprise and their data centers. Stick around.
Get chatting.
This is Category 5 Technology TV.
Our live recordings are trusted only to solid-state drives by Kingston Technology. Revive your computer with improved performance and reliability over traditional hard drives with Kingston SSDs.
Category 5 TV streams live with Telestream Wirecast and Nimble Streamer. Tune in every week on Roku, Kodi, Plex, and other HLS video players. For local showtimes, visit category5.tv.
Category5.tv is a member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. cat5.tv/TPN and the International Association of Internet Broadcasters. cat5.tv/IAIB.
Welcome to the show, everybody. My name's Robbie Ferguson.
I am Sasha Rickman.
And I'm Jeff Weston.
Great to see you. Before we jump into a very exciting show this week, I want to remind you to subscribe to us on YouTube. Click that bell as well, and that's going to ensure that you receive a notification every time we post new and exciting content. Folks, I am very, very pleased to have Bo with us from ameriDroid. Bo, great to see you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for making
Robin.
the trip.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Bo made the trek with his wife Rosemary all the way from sunny California to our beautiful city of Sunnyberry this week, and we're going to be talking a lot about single board computing in the enterprise and in the data center.
That sounds like a good thing to talk about.
So let's jump right into it. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about ameriDroid, how you guys got started? I mean, single board computers themselves are a very new thing.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, in the grand scheme of computing,
Right.
And they're really making they're changing a lot of markets and a lot of industries. How did you get involved in becoming one of the most respected and most well-known sales depots for single board computers?
Well, first of all, I'm honored that you say that.
True story.
Secondly, so I heard about the Raspberry Pi before it was launched, and I said, I need to get one of these things because I've always been a tinkerer and a programmer, messed around with electronics. You know, I let a lot of smoke out of a lot of components over the years. And so anyway, the Raspberry Pi 1 was announced. They didn't call it the 1 at the time because it was the only one.
It was the first thing.
And I got my first Raspberry Pi in the first batch that they shipped out, and I put the distro on it on an SD card and played with it. I was trying to build a surveillance camera, basically, that processes all the data, all the information, the video frames and everything on the camera, and only when it has a finished product, it sends it to a server. So,
So it kind of takes care of the transcoding and everything
right.
itself?
So most IP cameras are really noisy on the network because you got to ping every frame.
Okay,
over the network, and
interesting.
And then you have to have a big server. Like we had been installing some IP camera systems for customers, and you could put in this huge server, thousands of dollars in a rack, and maybe get 20-something cameras on it.
Wow.
Because that's all the network can. The network could be saturated. Also, depending on how much data. Like if you want to do 1080p, 30 frames per second, forget it.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Well, maybe with one camera, but
Sure. Yeah.
not with 20-something cameras, right? Yeah. And so we'd be going to these server closets, and they would be so hot because the server is like just working its tail off, trying to process all of these video streams or all these snapshots from these IP cameras, doing motion detection, region detection, all kinds of things, and then turning them into a finished product, right, that you can view later.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do this with the Raspberry Pi, and it worked great for about 1 or 2 days. And then it would lock up for no reason. So
Now, is this the coder's fault or the Pi? Or?
Originally, I blame myself.
Okay.
Right, because yes, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of data to be putting through a Raspberry Pi first gen.
It is, but there's a Raspberry Pi cam capture software, and you can run that. Just like as a user, you could run that as many times as you wanted, and it seemed to work fine.
Oh.
So it downloaded as a H.264. Basically, it's MP4, and the problem that I had then was, well, it would lock up, and whatever log I would initiate to try to find out what was going on would never show anything wrong with the system.
Right.
And so I said, well, I'll switch to Arch Linux. So I installed Arch Linux, and same problem.
Really? Okay.
So I was like, well, I think this is probably not a coding problem, because I made it the simplest possible thing. Like, basically capture 10 seconds of video, loop and repeat. Right. And I would have logs checking things like how much disk usage is it? Are we filling the disk? Are we filling up RAM? And none of those things were happening.
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, there might be something else on the market. So I went out and looked, and the odroid U2 was available at the time for $89.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to get that and play with that. So I got that, and I was blown away by how fast it was. I believe the U2 today could put the Raspberry Pi 4 to a race for its money.
Yeah.
Because it is so fast. I mean,
that's unreal.
We still use them at ameriDroid.
Yeah.
Odroid servers. Yeah. Odroid U2s. Yeah.
So you started as a maker yourself, like just as a fan, just like any of us, looking at Raspberry Pi and then branching out into other single board computers when the Pi wasn't powerful enough. Right.
Well, actually, I was looking to replace some solutions that were available, but not really very well implemented, like trying to get too many cameras onto one server.
Okay.
Right. So a lot of these things, like a lot of places like casinos or whatever, they'll have whole racks of servers.
The separate networks, everything.
They need more than 20 cameras.
So I wanted to develop a solution that could handle hundreds of cameras on one single board computer on one network.
Wow.
Basically one server. And the server is just a single board computer, because all it's doing is it's being a file share.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So then how did you transition from being like a fan, a maker, a tinkerer, building this neat design camera system, to now you're running ameriDroid and founded ameriDroid?
Right. Well, what happened is the odroid forum, I was spending a lot of time on there because I was doing development, and they said, hey, we want to put out our own magazine, user magazine, basically, and we're looking for editors and content creators and things like that. And I've always been kind of an English nerd, so I thought, well, hey, I could do some editing, because like I'll read like New York Times stories and say, oh, look at all these grammar mistakes.
Stay away from my blog, okay?
And well, and I expect that I expect proper writing from big news organizations.
Absolutely,
and a lot of times, especially
it's off-putting.
The farther we get along in technology, it seems like the worse the writing gets. But that's beside the point. I just wanted the odroid magazine to be done well, and so I was assistant editor to Rob Roy, who is still the current editor of the magazine, and I did that for about a year. Hard Kernel approached me because they knew we had experience in distributing technology in the past, specifically Amiga computers in the 90s, and they said, hey, we're looking for somebody to distribute our products, and kind of a long story is we ended up doing it. So
that's cool. And here we are. 2019, and things are evolving at a very, very fast pace. We're seeing like the Raspberry Pi 4 is leaps and bounds above where you were with the version 1.
Well, I'm finally happy to say that Broadcom has put out a good product for a single board computer. I mean, they've been great products for, Roku boxes used to use them, and a lot of different things used to use these Broadcom.
That's right. So what boards beyond Raspberry Pi, odroid,
Pine 64.
Do you carry? Yeah, Pine 64.
Atomic Pi.
Yeah.
NVIDIA Jetson. Let's see. We have about 40-something different distinct models of single-board computers in stock.
Wow. So you have stock of Atomic Pi?
Yes, we do.
Oh.
So, I got one right in a bag right here.
Fantastic.
And we also carry all of the accessories like the like the
white box.
yes, the white box which has a power supply in it, and the baby breakout board, which is in high demand.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to power an Atomic Pi.
Yeah. And this one, may I?
You may.
Look at this. We've got, so this says ameriDroid right on it.
Right.
So this is your own product.
That is, yes. If you flip it over, it has one of our engineers' names on there, Bo Thompson. He's the one who designed the board and had it manufactured. And then
very nice.
But yes, this is also available. This board is available from Digital Loggers, which is the company that distributes the Atomic Pi.
Mm-hmm.
But we had this period of time where we could not get them. And so we had some really high needs for getting a bunch really
lot
quickly.
of demand, right? If you're selling the Atomic Pi, but you don't have the boards to power them.
I think we were quoted like 6 to 8 weeks. And,
ouch.
And basically, we turned these out in 3 or 4 weeks.
So you just started building, like, forget that, let's build our own.
Well, no, we still get them from Digital Loggers.
Yes, yeah.
But this board was just a stopgap.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Isn't that cool? So what boards do you personally... And maybe this is, maybe a touchy subject because, I mean, he sells them, right? So let's, with the disclaimer that, hey, this question is not a leading question. I'm curious, with all the experience that you have with single board computers, are there any particular lines or products that you can say you just love?
Yes. So Raspberry Pi is a great community. They have tons of projects. They have tons of accessories. So if you're a beginner, the Raspberry Pi 4, the whole Raspberry Pi line is a great line to get started with.
Yeah, yeah.
But I find, at least for myself and people I would assume like me, will grow out of that pretty quick. And the differences between what a Raspberry Pi does and what an odroid or a Pine 64 does is very minimal. They're still running Linux.
Yeah, it'll be like a Debian server,
or
basically.
Android or whatever. And I've taken projects that were developed for the Raspberry Pi and just recompiled them on another system like an odroid or a Rock 64.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are... What I look for is, when I'm starting a project, what are the requirements of the project? Mm-hmm. What are the things I need the project to do? And then I find the board that meets those needs at the lowest cost.
Sure.
So sometimes it's a Rock 64, sometimes it's a Rock Pro 64. There's a big price difference between those two.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an odroid. Like here we've got, these are odroid HC2s. There's 2 of them stacked together. And this is for a ransomware deterrent system, basically. It protects your network, the data on your network, from ransomware, because one of these systems is not accessible from the network.
Cool.
The other system is. So as many of these as they need, as a company, an enterprise, municipality needs, can be placed on the network around the system and configured to dump data onto the network accessible share. Yeah. And the non-network accessible share takes snapshots and archives those.
Awesome.
Of the data on here. So
if you get attacked, all my files are encrypted, what happens?
If your files are encrypted, of course, this wants to be, you want this
We're talking ransomware here, like malicious encryption.
Right. You want to be sized, you want to have the drive size to hold enough data, basically. So that depends on how many systems, how big the systems are. Yeah. And a nice thing about the HC2 is it can be stacked. So we can stack numerous ones on top of here and have any number of them be offline and any number of them be online. So you can have a nice little tower of HC2 systems here. Or we can
might.
We can use HC1s as well. But what happens is that data gets archived on a schedule. So it could be daily, it could be hourly, it could be weekly, whatever you want. And actually what I like to do is, with my archived backups, is half of the archive I have whatever the schedule is. And then the other half of the archive, it starts deleting the archives between dates. So
you can go back to yesterday, day before yesterday, a week before that,
a month before.
So
you
save
can actually
space.
go a year back if you set it up that way.
Yeah.
So I have a cron job basically that'll clean it out.
Cool.
In this case, we're developing the software for this so that it does it all automatically, because most
Very nice.
enterprises want a solution.
Yeah.
And
They don't
that's
want a project.
That's what we're going to be talking about in just a couple moments' time, is how this can be used in enterprise. And it really makes me think about how the software needs to be there. And I mean, like, ready to go. Here are the specs. Here's how you build it. We need 2 HC2s or HC1s, and this is how you wire it in. Here's the software to make it happen. And when that happens, when that software is readily available, now all of a sudden, the demand is there, but now the facility is there as well, so that the IT department can say, here's the product, this is what we're going to do, and now we're ready.
Now, most enterprise IT departments will want to put it through a verification process.
Even auditing, like we go through auditing at NEMS, yeah.
And so you'll want to have an enterprise IT department will want to be able to do that, right? So the solution will be something that they can buy, and then they can just put on their network, onto their test net or whatever, and then test it out and see how it works. And maybe they need to configure something so that it meets their requirements.
Yeah.
And then they'll do like a test data restore and things like that.
That's important.
Those are always important. Yes, with any kind of backup.
A lot of companies will have a backup solution in place and never run that test scenario.
We've run into that numbers of times.
Yeah, and then ransomware hits, and they realize we're going to be down for 4 days.
Right.
Not acceptable. That's going to hurt the business big time.
Some cities are down for weeks with ransomware.
Yeah. No, that doesn't happen, does it, Bo?
No, not at all.
So my question was, which one is your favorite?
Yes.
And I like the way you answered, because there is no answer to that.
There is no answer, yes. It all depends on the features.
Just to summarize what you said, it's what is the project requiring. So sometimes I may need an N2. That may be appropriate for the project. Maybe I need something with more oomph, more CPU power, but sometimes I may just need a Raspberry Pi.
Right.
Or a Raspberry Pi Zero even. Like, I'm working on a really cool project I think is cool. You can tell me what you think. But our GPIO extender takes the GPIO from a Raspberry Pi, sends it over IP-based networks to a Raspberry Pi Zero, and uses the headers on that board. So now it can be anywhere.
It's a smart controller.
Exactly, and it's clever as well.
Yes, right. And inexpensive.
But in that use case, I'm not going to use a Raspberry Pi 4 for the endpoint.
Yeah,
I'm going to use a Raspberry Pi Zero. Yeah. So it absolutely. What's my favorite board? Depends on the use case. I think that's the best answer.
That's why we carry so many models.
Perfect.
Now, I mean, I like what you're doing with that stack, but what other projects are you kind of working on that, like, get you jived up in the morning?
Well, I was actually talking about this with Rosemary, and one of the things we want to do is set up, like you were talking about, the Backblaze server.
Yeah.
Right? So we're thinking about doing something.
A box, like a NAS unit that holds 60 hard drives or something like that, or 30 hard drives.
An insane amount of data.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's consumer drives, which makes it dirt cheap as far as, when the drives fail.
Right. Now, that's a good solution. I think presently it's about, according to their website, 3.6 cents or 3.8 cents a gigabyte at their cost, and 5 cents a gigabyte at the consumer's cost. Basically, if you're building it yourself, because you don't have the volume of scale that they have, because they buy tens of thousands of drives a year, and you're not going to buy tens of thousands of drives, so you won't get the same price as they do.
My wife would be very upset with me.
But I did a little calculation while I was here in Barrie just to see what it would take to do the same thing with single board computers.
Okay.
Instead of this big motherboard and SATA controllers and all these other things that you would need to do this, big power supplies. And what I came out with was around 3 cents consumer price per gigabyte.
No way.
Yeah. Now, it'll take a little more space because you're going to lose some of your drive slots for Rock Pro 64s. But that was it's actually one of the more expensive single board computers, is the Rock Pro 64.
Right.
And the reason that I chose that as a candidate for this project is because it has a PCIe slot.
Right.
And you can put a dual SATA card in there.
Right.
And so you can run 2 drives from one Rock Pro 64. And let's say you're using 4 terabyte drives, which are... What a lot of people don't realize is that the more terabytes you put into a drive, the more expensive per gigabyte they are.
Yes.
Can be. Yeah.
So a 4 terabyte drive is a good balance. And
we call it the sweet spot. It's
right.
Divide it by the number of gigs and figure out where your sweet spot is.
Right. So building this, we could probably put somewhere between 30 and 45 drives,
yes.
and about half that number of Rock Pro 64s in. So not only is it a cluster data storage,
yeah,
it also, unlike the Backblaze, which only works over HTTPS, that's the only way you can write and read data.
Oh, really?
That,
okay.
According to what I read on their website, anyway, if the data is current.
I would expect it to have iSCSI or any kind of
what I'm saying
protocols to be able to communicate.
Is the communication protocol with the Backblaze server?
Yes.
Only with the software that they provide is only over HTTPS.
Okay.
So with this method, let's say you use Debian, you could use any communication protocol that Debian
NFS,
right.
CIFS.
So, and you can also use, there's a file system, it's sort of like a hybrid file system OS called Ceph that allows you to mount multiple systems as a RAID storage.
Okay.
So multiple single board computers
right.
with connected drives as RAID.
Right.
Okay.
So it's meant as a distributed system. So Ceph can actually even sync data between geographic locations like a RAID.
Wow.
So that's sort of the concept we're going with. But we're talking about 3 cents roughly per gigabyte, my initial calculations. And that doesn't include the case, but I think the case might add a tenth of a cent or something onto it.
So
when you're talking about dozens or hundreds of terabytes, a gigabyte's very small. So, so there's a lot of things to divide it into, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So
this is going to be available next month?
Yes, exactly. No, as soon as I get back, it's going to be ready.
It's going to be in production.
No, it'll take a little while for us to do all that. But a really cool thing about it is not only, with like a Backblaze, and I think a Backblaze is a great solution, right? Especially for companies like Netflix and other companies that use that.
Yeah.
But this system will be, I think, an even better solution for a lot of people because it has less single points of failure, because each pair of drives has its own controller. Where a Backblaze has...
So if a controller fails, you only are down 2 drives.
Right.
What's the redundancy? Have you calculated that? What's your fault tolerance?
Well, Ceph has lots of 9s after the 99 for fault tolerance, because it automatically fixes redundancy when redundancy is lost. So as long as there's enough resources.
Enough space.
Right. It will say, let's say like in a RAID 5 with 3 drives, 1 drive fails, you've lost all your redundancy. With Ceph, what it would do in that same exact situation is, you have 3 drives, 1 fails, it now splits all the data with redundancy on 2 drives.
So now you can fail another drive.
You still have redundancy.
Oh my goodness.
As long as you've got enough capacity, right?
Wow.
So, but we're talking about 30 drives, 45 drives, something like that in one rack mount unit. So there's a lot of redundancy there.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic.
As long as you have enough capacity.
So we're learning that single board computers are not just for makers anymore, and we're seeing it even more and more in the enterprise data center. We're going to learn right after the break what is happening as far as the transition to the data center for single board computers, and how single board computing can be used to save thousands of dollars up front, hundreds of dollars every single year ongoing, and just actual hard expenses like electricity, air conditioning, cooling of the server room, and potentially millions of dollars when it comes to things like data loss. Stick around. Welcome back. This is Category 5 Technology TV. I'm joined by Bo from ameriDroid.
Hi.
And I hear that some of the staff are actually sitting at the office right now. They're supposed to be working.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
I'll give them a pass on this one. But I wanted to say thanks and a big shout out to all of the employees over at ameriDroid and RespectTech. And basically, we're one big happy family over there most of the time. And there's about close to 20 employees
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
that run the show. Not this show, but that show.
Well, it's nice to have them here.
Yeah, for sure.
So it takes a lot of people to provide the level of tech support and customer service that we do.
Right.
And to try to keep all the products on the shelves.
Yep.
And the products that are supposed to be in boxes and shipping places are and not going to the wrong places, or
Right.
the wrong products going to the wrong places. So,
Yeah.
that all takes a lot of work. And
Yeah, the logistics.
So what he's saying
I
is
can't
get back
imagine.
to work.
Well, well done, Anya. You're doing a fantastic job. We have a lot of respect for ameriDroid
Yeah.
up here in Canada. How are single board computers saving companies money? I mean, I alluded to it at the end of the last segment, talking about the electricity bills and things like that. But I know that there's a lot of money to be saved by transitioning from traditional server infrastructure to single board computers in the enterprise.
Right. Well, single board computers are getting to the point where they are powerful enough to be used as a desktop replacement, like you showed
Yeah.
last week with the Vim 3 and the Odroid H2, which fits in this cool little NAS box from KKSB.
Very nice.
I don't have an H2 because they're so popular that by the time they come in, they're already all sent out.
I saw on Twitter that you've got boxes all stacked up
Oh,
for the
yes.
post office.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's because the H2 showed up on Monday. I left Friday, so
Yeah.
I missed the shipment by a weekend. But I would have snagged one, but then there would be some unhappy customer somewhere because they'd have to wait another week or so
Yeah.
for the next batch to arrive. But yes, basically as fast as they're coming in, we're sending them out. But the H2 actually has a VESA mount. You can mount it on the back. You can buy the
On
VESA
your
mount,
monitor.
mount it on the back of your monitor and use
Okay.
it as a desktop.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
I have noticed a lot of people, just in general, there's more talk about them shunning Windows and moving to Linux.
Okay. Consumers, end users.
Right, like
Yeah.
even businesses. So the support costs, I think, are coming down on Linux because it's more mainstream now than
Yeah.
it used to be.
Mhm.
Right, and Windows is increasing support costs because we've seen so much go wrong with the update process
Yeah.
and the licensing process and any number of things. You want to change a component in your system and you have to re-audit the system basically a lot of times. So
Yeah.
So single board computers being used as a desktop replacement,
right, and
which makes sense in business because it performed really well for internet access and using the Office suite, things like that.
right. Most of the things that people use now are not locked in like they used to be.
Yeah.
Like Google Docs can work on
That's
pretty
it.
much anything. And,
Yeah.
and I mean, even some single board computers run Android, and you can actually use Android as a desktop system.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually do that.
Mhm.
And I have a number of single board computers on my desk with each attached to their own monitor, and I use Synergy to combine them all into one
Yeah.
cohesive system.
Cool.
And
Is Synergy compatible with Android?
Synergy is, yes.
Really?
There is it's not the most current port, but
Yeah.
it's still compatible.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, you just download the Synergy app and
Synergy lets you use just one keyboard and mouse with as many computers as you have connected, and through the IP network, it lets you use control each one.
right. It seems like multiple desktops.
Yeah.
Basically, or multiple
Monitors on a
system.
single computer,
Right.
but each one has its own independent processing power.
The one big thing that is hard to do is, you can't drag a window from one to the other.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, you
You
gotta
know.
get used to that.
But actually, I did put Synergy. I have a IP phone with a big screen, 7-inch screen on my desk, and I have Synergy running on that because it's running Android, and I actually can do desktop stuff on my phone.
Cool.
No way.
Yes, I use it as a separate
So
screen.
neat.
So sometimes I'll watch Category 5 TV while I'm doing other work,
Yeah.
and it'll be running on my phone.
That's cool.
On my desk phone, right? And then if
Very cool.
if a call comes in, it switches to the phone interface,
Yeah.
and I hang up and it goes back to Category 5. So,
That's very cool.
So in the server room, what are we seeing as far as the transition in hardware? I feel like there's still a little bit of a hesitation in the C-suite, especially with, okay, well, how can $200 investment in a single board computer option equate when I'm so used to spending $6,000 on a 2U server?
well, for companies that are entrenched in Windows servers, this will not
Is
be a
that
good
it?
solution, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
But for companies that are more agile and flexible, you can save a ton of money by going with a single board computer solution. And you're not going to take $111 Odroid H2 and replace your $6,000 server.
Of course.
Because it doesn't have the storage, it doesn't have a number of other things, but you can hook it up to storage, right? So it's the price will be something less than $6,000.
Sure.
But much closer to the $111 than to the $6,000.
Right. I mean, how many people have a one-use server that's a couple grand to do file sharing?
And so noisy that nobody can work alongside it.
Noise, heat, electricity usage.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have to have a huge battery backup to support it.
True.
And a number of other things. So
you could use a 3-volt LiPo with most of these.
Right. What I'd recommend is, if you want to do this, replace your server with more than one single board computer.
All right.
Because that way you can further segment the responsibilities, the server responsibilities to hardware, where the previous trend or the ongoing trend has been to spec a huge server that can run numerous Hyper-V instances or virtual machines.
Yep.
Because Microsoft said, hey, we're just joking about Microsoft Server being a system that can run everything on one machine, unless you segment it out into Hyper-V instances that one does the domain controller and one does Exchange and one does this and that and the other thing. So with a single board computer, you can do that, and you can have a second one that does the exact same thing.
And it's mirrored or
it's mirrored,
has redundancy.
Right, it has redundancy. So at worst, the IT guy goes back. Moves the Ethernet cable from one to the other, or disconnects one.
Right.
Yeah.
And it fails over.
Can I see one of these, like the Rock 64 that you have there?
Right.
For example. So what starts to go through my head as you're speaking like this, Bo, is let's say I've got a server with a lot of hard drives in it. That's my data server. And then I've got and it's iSCSI. Right? So just a scenario for you. So iSCSI being the protocol that I use from my other servers to connect to it for storage. So the iSCSI unit provides all the redundancy, provides all the storage and the actual capacity of my network. But then I've got another one-use server that runs Samba.
Right.
This can become my Samba server.
Right.
It has USB 3 if I want to put an external drive on it, but it also has gigabit Ethernet.
Right.
So now I'm connected to my iSCSI from a Debian Buster image here, and if it crashes, how much is that?
This ranges from $25 to $50, depending on how much memory you want.
So pull it out, put in another one. You can have a couple in the drawer that are already pre-configured and ready to go.
Or even in the rack.
Because the data's not there. The data is on the iSCSI.
Right.
And it has a eMMC as well. So
this runs eMMC or microSD. And you can actually duplicate between the two. So if the eMMC goes down, you have the microSD and vice versa.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is at ameriDroid, pretty much everything that we do runs on single board computers. The whole operation, and we're pretty much paperless.
That's cool.
So the only paper that we use is that little packing slip you get.
Oh yes.
And the label on the box.
Yeah.
So those are the only two paper products, other than the boxes themselves, that we use at ameriDroid. Everything else is done digitally. So the shippers use tablets to run through checking and double checking.
Yeah.
That's time stamped with our camera system, because our camera system is built off of Raspberry Pis. This is a case I designed for that, and we sell this on our website. It's called,
I love it, Bo.
It's called a Smooth Cam case.
Smooth Cam case. Are you selling these?
Yes, we do.
So this is for the Raspberry Pi camera.
That's a Raspberry Pi camera.
Are you ready?
Toolless.
Toolless. Okay.
Yes.
On the back, 1/4 inch.
Right. So that's a regular camera mount.
No way.
So you can hook it up to any.
Put it on a wall mount, like your surveillance camera wall mount.
We sell the wall mounts for like next to nothing. I think they're like
brilliant.
Less than $5 for the wall mount.
So all your cameras are powered by a Raspberry Pi.
All our cameras are Raspberry Pis.
So that makes them independent of one another too. So normally your DVR goes down, all of your cameras are down.
Right. Oh. So the cameras send their data. They can send their data to more than one server. So we have a Odroid U3 and a 1U enclosure.
Yeah.
That has an external USB 2 hard drive, and it's only 100 megabit Ethernet, and it can handle 1080p, 30 frames per second cameras throughout our business.
Fantastic.
And not only that, but it timestamps each segment that is that has motion in it.
Right.
So when the shippers are doing the things on their tablets and they click, I'm going to start getting the items, collecting the items for this order, they'll click a button.
Yeah.
It looks like a bin because that's where they put things in.
Yeah.
And it automatically timestamps, or it automatically links to all of the camera images, all the camera videos for that time.
Oh, neat.
So
Wow,
in the
that's cool.
future, if there's a problem with an order, we can just go to that order, click on the play button, and boom,
see all
there
the
it is.
cameras
And then
from
we
that
can
time.
also watch the person cross-checking it.
Yeah.
The timestamps that as well. And then that receipt has a barcode on it. I don't know if you noticed that. But we have a NVIDIA Shield tablet, and they just hold that barcode underneath the NVIDIA Shield, and it timestamps it saying it's going into the box.
Oh, that's neat.
So
Wow.
we can see every step of the process without having to go search through hours of footage
Yeah.
Right.
to try to find it.
Wow.
And so it makes it super easy. Single board computers are amazing. If the camera goes down, it's like big deal. Throw another one up there.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
you can put 100 cameras on one U3, which is
U3 being another
an
single board
odroid, yes.
computer. Yeah.
And it came out in, I think, 2013 or 2014.
Yeah.
So it's not like a brand new single board computer. It's got 100 megabit Ethernet and USB 2, like I said.
Yeah.
And that's how it's storing all its data, because
That's wonderful.
when you have an H.264 stream, it compresses pretty well.
Yeah.
And so that's all that's getting sent over the network.
Wow.
Very
So,
cool.
Now-
yeah, there's amazing things you can do with single board computers.
And so your warehouse is utilizing these things like crazy. Are there any
Yes.
Are there any big businesses that come to mind, or institutions that are using single board computing in their infrastructure?
I think we're still in the infancy, but there are companies, especially in the single board computer market, that have that have been proving that this is a thing. So Raspberry Pi, their system for the launch of the Raspberry Pi 4, and I think that's the entire system runs on Raspberry Pi 4 cluster. So
Oh wow!
Pine 64's website, blog,
Right, I saw
forum,
this.
all their stuff runs on a cluster of Rock Pro 64s
Yeah,
Right.
in a rack.
yeah. So
And-
the manufacturers are utilizing their own hardware. Finally, really,
Right.
when it comes down to it, like they're finally at the point where they feel like, hey, this can be our data center, and they're proving it.
A funny story is that when Hard Kernel came over to visit us right after we started, I showed them how we were using single board computers
Yeah.
as our infrastructure, and they were mostly Odroid products, and he said, "I'm not sure that I would trust our products yet." And I'm like, "Well, why would you have a problem trusting them when you can have redundancy?"
Yeah.
Sure.
So if you have redundancy, any fear you have of losing data or things going down is lesser than if you have like
Yeah.
a single point of failure server, a motherboard. Like in our server rack, where we do non-ameriDroid stuff,
Yeah.
our parent company, they have huge server racks with servers in them,
Like
and
traditional?
They have to have additional motherboards on hand
Okay.
to replace
Right. Yeah.
a motherboard if it goes out,
Right.
because you can't have redundant motherboards.
That's a lot of
in a
work
server
too.
rack.
Like you've got to, you have to rebuild the entire thing.
Basically, you do.
Versus having a drawer full of pre-configured things that cost a fraction of the price.
Right.
Now, are we at the point with, being able to use single board computers for enterprise where somebody could walk in and say, hey, here's I hate to use the term, but like a sales pitch, and go, this is what you do. We've got we could use this single board computer for this function, this for this, and redo somebody's entire workplace. Like, are we at the point where we could do that, or is it still kind of piecing it together?
It wouldn't be an off-the-shelf solution right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right.
Right.
So a consultant that is well versed in Linux and the necessary technologies that the company is using. If there's no, like if something that requires an Active Directory from Windows, right?
Yeah.
You're probably going to want to keep a Windows server, right? It's just
Switch to LDAP.
the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for most other companies, you could say, here's what you do, and here's an equivalent system that runs on single board computers for much less, lower
Right.
power. And we leave our single board computers on all the time because they just take so little power.
Yeah.
Maybe as the C-suite watching this and the IT managers watching this, like, hunt down within your organization those who are creative makers and like set aside some time every week and say, okay, let's get you a couple of little $50 micro single board computers and see what you can come up with.
Right. And a great way to do this is to start with building a small system and testing it, and then once you've done that, migrate a work group to it.
Yeah.
And
right. Yeah.
That's basically what we did at ameriDroid. Is we started out with standard infrastructure, and over time we've migrated completely to single board computers. So our entire file server is a odroid XU4 running on a Cloud Shell 2 system, which is a custom RAID NAS box made by Hardkernel, but it's a commodity unit. You can buy any of the components for it.
Right.
And so if anything goes wrong, you just pop out the $50 XU4 and put a new one in it, or you change out the microSD or the eMMC module, or change out the hard drives, and you're back up and running.
Pretty simple.
But it's pretty bulletproof. And
very good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now I noticed that you've brought some stuff with you, and we've been kind of reaching over here. Can we see some of the things that you've brought?
Sure.
And how this is going to impact us in the data center? This one looks really cool because it.
Yeah, this may or may not be a great solution for the data center because of its design. But what this is a great solution for is any company or institution that wants to investigate cluster computing.
Can I show this to the folks at home? What I see here, it looks like a SODIMM, but it has an A64 brand on it, and I see also on the back I've got a micro SD port here. So what's this? That's
the SO Pine module from Pine 64.
Yeah.
And this is the Pine 64 cluster board.
Okay.
So this will take 7 of these modules.
So that chip that you have that looks like a memory chip is the single board computer.
That is the single board computer.
Okay.
There is no HDMI or display output on this.
Server-based.
This is meant to be run headless. But let's say you're developing something that you want to run as a clustered system, and you don't want to invest the thousands of dollars to spec a test system to test out your software.
Yeah.
Well, you can do that with this, and then you can determine what are your needs. How does this performance compare to what performance you need?
Right.
And it was just announced, well, not really announced, but the founder.
So this is inside information, folks.
Not really.
It hasn't really been announced, but you're going to be hearing about this.
There was an interview by, I believe it was Tech Republic with TL Lim, the founder of Pine 64, and TL Lim said that the SO Rock module, which is based on the Rock Pro 64, I believe, is going to be available, and it may or may not work in this cluster board, or may have its own cluster board. I don't know.
We got to know.
It's too early for us to know this yet. But a really cool thing about this cluster board is you've got one Ethernet gigabit controller. I believe this is gigabit, and then you've got it's a built-in switch. So all of these are connected via a switch to that 1 gigabit port.
Okay. So they all have their own MAC address?
Right.
Okay.
Huh. And then you've got both the barrel jack connector or an ATX connector, so you can connect an ATX power supply.
And it looks like a standard micro ATX form factor as well. So you can put that in a standard case.
I believe so. Yeah. And then it has full-size USB ports for each module, and micro USB ports for each module, and GPIO for each module as well. And then it has a shared eMMC socket there. And I believe this battery here is for saving state if the system loses power. Okay,
like RTC, the clock, and everything else.
Like that. So this board costs $99, and then each of the SO DIMM SO Pines cost $30, I think.
Wow!
So you can actually build a really capable cluster for less than $200. We have a lot of universities that order these from us because they're doing a lot of cluster research.
Yeah,
right. So they want to try different algorithms out, where each of these boards has a quad-core processor and 2 gigs of RAM, I believe, and so they can run with 28 cores or whatever it is.
Holy cow! So when I cluster these on the cluster board, am I going to get like 6-7 times the performance of a single A64 single board computer?
Independently, yes, you'll get 7 times the performance. Now the rest, like if you're doing a cluster application, you want to get 7 times the performance. That's the goal.
Yeah. Okay.
The question is, are you going to be able to get that?
Right.
And that depends on your algorithm and your use case and all those things. So that's why they would want to use a system like this, is to tweak and optimize their algorithms to operate over a multiple system cluster.
Right.
And if I didn't want to take that advantage of the cluster board, increasing performance, is it possible? I don't want to put all the focus on this, but this is really cool. Is it possible to have 7 A64s, with the A64 being a very capable board on its own?
Right. That's what the Pinebook uses.
Yeah. So put Debian on each of these. Would they operate as independent Debian machines? So this would show up as 7 Debian installs on my network, and each one I can set up independently of one another.
Right. And you can also run Debian and Ubuntu and whatever other flavors on different models.
Yeah, whatever you need, right?
So
and you've got GPIO.
If you want to try running your algorithm on multiple systems at the same time, you can do that. So
compiling across multiple different distros and things like that would be great too. Do some benchmarks. That is cool. Anything else to show us today?
Sure. Well, on that line we have the odroid MC1 Solo.
My Cloud, right?
MC? Cloud, yes.
My Cloud, yeah.
Right. So this is actually a red-haired stepchild because it accidentally had...
Sorry, Jeff.
I'm not talking about you, Jeff.
I won't take it personal.
Because this is not supposed to have the SATA connector on it.
Right, yeah, that's odd.
This is actually the same board that's used in the HC1 and the HC2.
Yeah.
So if you look, it's the same board.
Right.
Okay.
And in here, it's supposed to have the SATA connector.
Right.
Okay.
But not in the MC1. So I use this one as a demo, and it's kind of fun because it's not very often that you get a fluke.
Yeah.
But you can stack as many of these as you want on top of each other. And we actually installed TensorFlow on it as a cluster to do object recognition.
AI?
And AI and other things.
So it will operate AI? TensorFlow is...
Yeah. TensorFlow is an AI algorithm by Google.
Yeah.
Wow.
So is there an advantage over that versus like the Jetson or the Vim3, which have the...
Well, those have integrated actual AI silicon.
This does?
This does not.
This does not.
Right.
So those would perform faster for those...
For the software that supports
I'm just getting my head around the
software that
TensorFlow.
supports it, right.
Yeah.
But this can be used for any number of different things. Same as the SOPine.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can stack, multiples of these and have, you can have like a whole tower. I believe HardKernel made a cryptocurrency miner out of a bunch of these.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Just because they can.
Right. There's different types of cryptocurrency mining or cryptocurrency proof algorithms, and one of them is called proof of stake time or proof of there's proof of work time, and a third one. Well, only one of them uses a ton of CPU, and that's the one that Bitcoin uses.
Right.
The other ones use either a lot of memory or other things, and because these have 2 gigabytes of RAM in them each, they have the memory. They don't need a ton of CPU, so they're great for mining certain coins.
Oh, cool.
And I think HardKernel used it to mine Varium. So yeah, that's
how interesting.
And then you mentioned the Jetson, which we also sell. So this is the Jetson Nano developer kit.
That carries an NVIDIA brand
Right. This
on
is
it.
the NVIDIA. It's got a whole lot of CUDA cores. I forget how many.
On a single board computer.
On a single board computer.
Wow.
Which is wild.
So you'll probably see a lot of these running.
I want to mine on that.
Well, I don't know about mining because it's still using ARM CPUs, but it's the GPU cores that are really
That's it. If you can tap into those.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you'll see this running a lot of autonomous robots.
Okay.
Right.
For
it's got to be able to process in real-time video for bump detection and object orientation.
Yeah, and this has 4 USB 3 ports.
Right.
And so you can attach a lot of high throughput devices to it.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, point in case, there is such a plethora of different types of single board computers for all kinds of uses. You showed me a little tiny one as well. And like, speaking of like, can you think of a use case for something like that?
So this the biggest component on this is the Ethernet port,
which is basically the whole thing.
If you look, about 80% or 75% of the volume of this is the Ethernet port.
Yeah.
The actual computer is just this top 1-inch square postage stamp size piece.
And what's this one?
This is called the VoCore 2. It comes in a light, a standard, and ultimate. This is the ultimate mode. The light and the standard are just the top piece, and so you can you can connect.
So you
to the
want that
GPIO
Ethernet
pins around the edge.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's micro SD controller. There's USB, UART, Ethernet, a lot of different. A lot of different GPIOs on here.
That's nuts.
So, and it's got built-in Wi-Fi. And it has built-in storage. It's not a ton of storage, but it has a built-in OS based on Linux.
So again, it's just like, what is your
and
use
a
case?
Web server. So
a built-in web server too.
So this actually ships with OpenWRT on it.
So it's a router?
Yes. So
Really?
So I actually use one of these in the ameriBus, and I have they actually make something called a vocam for this. That's a 1080p camera.
Oh, neat.
And so this basically becomes this and that little camera, which you could just mount anywhere on here. So basically you have a camera that's about 2 inches square.
Yep.
Or 2 square inches, I should say.
Okay, yeah.
Or 2 cubic inches.
I don't know. Everything's in feet up here.
Yeah.
2 cubic inches, and I won't convert that to centimeters for you.
How many decimal places of a foot is that?
So anyway, that turns it into a Wi-Fi camera, and so we were having a maker meeting the other day, and we're upstairs, and downstairs the door was locked because it's also a business.
Yeah.
And some people come late, so I had this running in ameriBus pointing at the door, and upstairs on my phone I had it streaming.
Okay.
And I was just connected directly to this because we didn't have Wi-Fi in the makerspace at the time. So
brilliant.
So anyway, I could see when somebody was coming to the door and send somebody down to unlock it.
That's wild.
Cool. So
I cannot,
you do crazy things with these.
I can't believe that something that small has now become a computer.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you go back to the days of, World War II when they took up a massive room with spinning discs, and it's like...
And that's more powerful.
This you can make it like a automated garage door opener or with a camera.
But you'd, of course, set it up for voice activation and everything else, and network connectivity for Amazon Echo. And
they also sell a USB display that we also sell. It's called a Vo display. It's 4.3 inches, 800 by 480.
Yeah.
So it's like cell phone quality screen.
Fantastic.
And so you can build a little mini system out of this. And
wow.
It starts at $12.95.
Oh my goodness.
This particular one's about $45.
So do you see what I'm saying? Find that person within your organization who can tinker with this stuff. It's such a small investment, but such a huge savings when you get to that point. And I think we're seeing that software is coming out that is ready to deploy. We're seeing things like Pi-hole is a great example of a DNS server that operates not only as a DNS server but as a filtering list subscription service, like Bind9 DNS blocking and things like that based on lists.
Right.
So
we also sell official Pi-hole devices.
Yeah, but you could put it on any one of these things.
Right.
And it's just an example of a piece of software that, hey, if you want to take a look at that, you can deploy it on any single board computer, try it in your organization. A school would do very well with something like a Pi-hole, which would be able to filter things like pornographic websites and block advertising and everything else within the building.
Right, it's very customizable. You can tell what you want to block and what you don't want to block.
So we're starting to see those types of programs that are available for free to download, and you just get an SBC, and once you've deployed it, you're ready to go.
Right. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So this is what's running the. If you go on to pine64.org, most of what you see there is running off of these.
Their whole server is that.
It's just a bunch of
That's
these
their server.
slotted in a rack.
Crazy. Bo, you're in the industry. Just as we kind of wrap up our discussion today, so you see the evolution of this more than any of us, because by the time it gets to us, it's at the consumer level. Where is single board computing going? Like, what are we going to see this year that is really getting you excited? Well,
a few things I'm seeing that are really exciting me right now are devices like the Pinebook Pro. This is the Pinebook.
Yeah.
The Pinebook Pro is coming out, and that's going to be... The Pinebook is fine for light computing.
Right. But now we're looking... This is the board again.
Right. So that's what the Pinebook Pro is going to be running off of right there.
Rock Pro 64.
Basically a modified version of that board. And that will be able to run Chromium, basically a Chromebook.
Yep.
It runs Android. It also runs various flavors of Linux.
Whatever you want.
So if you want a Linux laptop, you should be able to get it for somewhere around $200 with, well appointed, actually, with a alloy case and eMMC storage, camera, 1080p screen, long battery life.
Right.
A lot of different options. And a great thing about that is it's not going to have any of the bloatware on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's not running Windows, it's running Linux.
Yeah.
So you can be assured about your privacy. And that's another thing that you were mentioning about where single board computers going. I think in general, a lot of single board computers are embracing the privacy issues that people are feeling when their data is getting mishandled by cloud computing companies or like the big players in tech like Google or Microsoft or Amazon or whoever it may be. So they allow you to take back control of your data. For instance, I have all of our photos stored on an odroid U3 with a attached hard drive at home. And I wrote a little web server for that, or website actually, that allows me to log in, and we can pull up any pictures from anywhere, of our whole archive of photos that takes up hundreds of gigabytes. Right? So I don't have it on a cloud somewhere.
It's your own personal cloud.
Own personal cloud,
way,
right? And so I've got full control over that data.
And I think that it's being translated as like folks like Pine64. They're listening to that need. They're listening and hearing the community saying, we really want these privacy features. And you mentioned the Pinebook Pro, which Wukash had just announced that they are actually going to be putting tactile switches that on a hardware level will disable Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and add that additional layer of protection. Turn off your webcam.
You won't have to stick a Band-Aid over your webcam anymore.
Exactly.
You can actually physically turn it off. Right?
So but they're listening and they're making these changes to what is an open platform and redesigning based on user requests and
and the
putting in keyboards that are ANSI compatible, that kind of stuff.
Well, another thing about the A64 here is it's also going to be the backbone of the Pine phone that they're coming out with probably the fourth quarter of this year. And again, it's a privacy-centric Linux smartphone.
We've got the switches on there too.
Really a hard thing to find nowadays. Is there have been a few people who have attempted Linux smartphones. And I think Librem is one of the current front runners there, but they're still not available, and they're going to be
a lot more expensive.
So you'll be able to get your feet wet with a Linux privacy smartphone for probably somewhere around $150.
Wonderful.
And it may not be your daily phone that you use for everything, but it may be. It might be the next generation is your daily phone.
Depends on how into Angry Birds you are.
Well, there are going to be some issues, because you're not going to be able to easily play Android games on it.
But for day-to-day, just phone calls, Discord.
A fully secure phone. This is a great option. And I'm really excited to see it, 6-inch screen, a high-resolution screen, and nicely spec'd. So it's not going to be as fast as your Samsung or your
Right.
iPhone, but
A lot
it's
cheaper.
going to be a lot cheaper and a lot more private.
Yeah.
Basically, as private as we
And it's
want it to
open
be.
source. Like,
Right.
you can download the OS for it, the one that you want. You
Right.
can modify it, customize it, and
There
make it the way you want
tons of OSs in development, like
it. Love it.
Postmarket and Sailfish and Loon, and just a bunch of different ones.
Yeah,
So,
and it's going to continue to grow. Well, we've been speaking with Bo from ameriDroid. Check them out, ameriDroid.com. We incidentally have a coupon code if you want to support us and let them know that their visit here was noticed. Use Cat5 TV Supporter is the coupon code to use, and that will, I guess you guys will throw a little bit of money in
right,
my
yeah,
pocket.
it gives the customer $1 off, which is not a whole lot, but the main goal is to get Robbie money. So
I need to buy a new wig.
a more significant portion of the sale goes to Robbie.
To
when you use that
Category
coupon
5,
code.
to
Yes.
clarify.
Yes.
I don't take a commission.
Well, you're volunteers. So,
Yeah. But
It goes
to
the
funding
channel.
Category 5 technology TV and the expenses that we have here. So, and what do you think of the place? I mean, this is your first time here in Barrie. You're in our studio. This is a rare privilege to have a guest in the studio. Marshman
Well,
came up and joined us.
I've seen you. I watch your live show every chance I get, and then I watch the recorded show when I don't get the chance to watch
Right,
the live show, and sometimes I get to watch parts of each because I come late. But you sold the studio as being small, and it's not really that small.
No?
I think it's well appointed. Yes,
We've tried to utilize the space as well as possible. That's for sure.
that's very nice.
Well, it's nice to have you here. Thank you both for being here. Rosemary is in our audience today, and it's great having you up here with us. And thanks for sharing your knowledge. And remember, check out ameriDroid.com. Anytime you want to purchase an SBC, they're the best place to go. And use that Cat5 TV Supporter coupon code in order to help support the show as well. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We do have to head over to the newsroom. We're just going to fade to black and transition ourselves and throw it over to Sasha.
Here are the stories we're covering this week in the Category 5.tv newsroom. British Airways is facing a record fine of £183 million, nearly $230 million US, for last year's breach of its security systems. You'll be able to pre-order the hotly anticipated $199 Pinebook Pro this month. Researchers from the Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection Research Team have issued a warning to confirm that a notorious credential-stealing malware threat is targeting Windows users. And the Raspberry Pi 4, announced 2 weeks ago, is the Raspberry Pi Foundation's first ever USB-C device. And, well, they made a pretty hefty mistake. As it turns out, the Pi 4 has a non-compliant USB-C charging port and doesn't work with as many chargers as it should. These stories are coming right up. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Category 5.tv newsroom, covering the week's top tech stories with a slight Linux bias.
I'm Sasha Rickman, and here are the top stories we're following this week. British Airways is facing a record fine of £183 million, nearly $230 million US, for last year's breach of its security systems. The airline, owned by AIG, said it's surprised and disappointed by the penalty from the Information Commissioner's Office, or the ICO. At the time, British Airways said hackers had carried out a sophisticated, malicious criminal attack on its website. The ICO said the incident took place after users of British Airways' website was diverted to a fraudulent site. Through this false site, details of about 500,000 customers were harvested by the attackers, the ICO said. Information Commissioner Elizabeth Denham said, quote, "People's personal data is just that, personal. When an organization fails to protect it from loss, damage, or theft, it is more than an inconvenience." She goes on to say, "That's why the law is clear. When you are entrusted with someone's personal data, you must look after it. Those that don't will face scrutiny from my office to check that they have taken appropriate steps to protect fundamental privacy rights," end quote. The ICO said that this is the biggest penalty that it has ever handed out and the first to be made public under the new rules.
Wow. Jeff, I feel like they're making an example.
Just a little. That's a massive fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at all the other data breaches that there's been. I don't. Maybe I'm missing something in the story, but I don't understand how you can hit that kind of fine for that data breach, but let the others slide. Now, maybe it's just because
I think it's new regulations.
Well, yeah,
and that's what this is the first under those new regs,
right?
To be charged.
Now, some of the other massive data breaches, they were on American soil, were they not? As opposed
a lot of them,
UK.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that might be part of it is geographical boundaries. But yeah, I mean, that's a massive hit. It guaranteed somebody there's going to go, let's make sure we do things properly next time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, I think, is going to have their eyes open now, right?
Well, companies need to be wise to data privacy concerns, and these days it's not optional anymore. Like people,
right.
I talk about ransomware and things like that a fair bit. What we don't necessarily realize is if we have remote desktop open and somebody compromises that with a brute force attack, yes, ransomware is one method that they can use to exploit your systems because they get in there and they can encrypt your data, but sometimes data theft is part of that. Sometimes a combination of the two. Maybe download a couple of gigabytes worth of data and then encrypt your files. You don't really know what they're up to if you're not meticulously watching, which you're not because you've got RDP open.
That's right.
As an example, right? So I say, like, you've got to be, as a business, you've got to be more mindful these days that ransomware and data theft is a real thing. That's why we use Kingston DT2000s.
Yeah.
The encrypted USB flash drives. That's why we don't have RDP open on our networks. We use something such as ConnectWise in its place. So we can still remote into our computers from our home, but something like ConnectWise, using that as the example, because they force two-factor authentication. So when I sign up for my account and I set up remote access to my computer, well, nobody else can gain access to that unless they've got what?
Your phone.
Robbie's phone.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to access my computers.
Well, exactly. And I mean, when I think about these fines, I kind of equate it a little bit to like the hands-free driving law that we have here in Ontario. Like at first it was like I think a $50 fine, and it didn't work. And so legislation kept changing, upping it, and now it's like 3 points.
It's the death penalty.
Like it's massive. But the sad thing is, it's still not a deterrent. Like the amount of people that I see still using their phones while driving, and I'm just like, what do they have to do? Like, do you need to lose your license for 6 months? And so I'm hoping with all these data breaches we've been seeing that a huge fine like this is going to cause companies to go, we have to take this serious.
Yes.
And to avoid that, we're going to put the extra steps in place to make sure we're not one of those companies that ends up on the news.
It's such an interesting comparison that you've created there. Because now I think, okay, well, how many of us have heard about a death because somebody was texting on their phone while driving on the highway?
Yeah.
And yet you still continue to do it.
Right. It's
how many of us have heard of data breaches and ransomware attacks, and yet we still continue to have lax security practices?
Yeah, I think that the fines need to start going up and up, and especially if you're a repeat,
negligent
person who's been hit.
So
like because we've covered a couple stories now where people have been hit a couple times, and it's like, if you didn't learn the first time, like your fines go through the roof, and I think it needs to be quite heavy.
And here you go. So based on that, if you get hit by ransomware, you bankrupt. If you get hit by data theft, you bankrupt. Just by the government. That's all.
You'll be able to pre-order the hotly anticipated $199 Pinebook Pro this month. Pine64, the US-based company behind a growing range of ARM-powered Linux devices, said Pinebook pre-orders will go live July 25th, 2019. Pine64's 14.1-inch laptop will now include privacy switches to disable the internal Bluetooth and Wi-Fi module, the webcam, and the built-in microphone, all at the hardware level. This is achieved using a special keyboard firmware, which is not part of the main OS, that cuts power to the relevant module when a specific short keyboard shortcut key combo is pressed. Pine 64 will give pre-order priority to members of their forum who registered before July 1st. These members can also benefit from a limited time storage upgrade of 126 gigabytes.
128, to be clear. You get 2
gigabytes.
extra gigabytes.
Oh, oops. Versus the 64 gigabyte eMMC on offer in the regular retail version.
This is so exciting. Like, we're talking about a single board computer powered, reasonable daily driver laptop.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited about this. I didn't realize the July 1st one, though.
Oh.
Cut off. So I'm sitting here going, crud!
Oh, for signing up to the so
Yeah.
you'll be thanking your lucky stars if you listened to us and signed up for their forum way back.
Right.
Yeah, clearly I didn't.
Sorry
Yeah,
for
that
your
must
luck,
be an
Jeff.
episode I missed.
You're going to be waiting. And I love that they are favoring their community and favoring those who are already a part of their community, and those who are not. You're like kicking yourself and going, oh,
I know.
well, go sign up and be a
feel
part
like-
of that community.
Maybe
And
we'll
that's
get
I'm
on
the
the
guy
next
who
thing.
sits like outside a record store 30 years ago for 12 hours waiting for the new CD release, and everybody else is like, I work there. So,
now you can just get it off of Amazon before it comes out.
yeah, for like $1 billion.
It's going to be like earth-shattering because,
Yes.
okay, the Pine Book really showed me that a cheap, and cheap as in like very ultra affordable laptop can be made using this new technique that is utilizing single board computers. Now they're taking that to the next level. So what was the A64 based Pine Book and now is becoming like the Pine Book Pro, which is the Rock Pro 64 main board. So it's faster, it's got more memory, it's got more power, it's really going to feel like a proper laptop. And Linux can go on there. You've got Android, you've got all kinds of stuff.
Yep, I'm really excited.
It's going to be awesome. Let us know if you get one, and make sure you post below what you are going to be using yours for. I think this could be my daily driver. I don't do gaming.
Awesome.
I just program a lot.
Right.
And I use the internet. I use like things like Google Drive. I use Gmail for my email. So as long as I've got access to coding, internet, surfing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, like
I'm great.
our oldest son is homeschooled.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this would be great for him for his school laptop.
Sure.
Like, be awesome.
They're stunning too. Incidentally, they're stunning.
Yeah. He'll be super excited.
Researchers from the Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection Research Team have issued a warning to confirm that a notorious credential stealing malware threat is targeting Windows users. What makes this one so dangerous is that it uses an invisible man methodology by only running files within the attack chain that are legitimate systems tools, and so it hides in plain sight. The Astroth Trojan can employ many techniques, including keylogging and clipboard monitoring, to steal login credentials. However, it is the way that it exploits living off the land binaries, or LOL bins, that has created a certain level of infamy for the malware. In the case of the threat campaign that the newly published Microsoft report confirms, it was the Windows Management Instrumentation Command Line, or WMIC, that was the LOL bin in question. Andrea Lally, part of the Microsoft Defender ATP research team and author of the report, notes that the victim still has to click on a malicious link in an email to initiate the attack chain via a file that runs an obfuscated batch file.
I'll help you with that. Obfuscated.
Obfuscated. I can say it in practice. This batch file, in turn, runs the legitimate WMIC system tool in such a way that an obfuscated. We'll edit that in post. JavaScript file runs automatically. With this one, the background intelligent transfer service admin tool is used to download payloads. Lully explained that these kinds of fileless attacks run the malicious payloads, quote, directly in memory of leverage legitimate systems tools to run malicious code without having to drop executable files on the disk, end quote. Eli Salem, a security researcher at Cyber Reason, who uncovered another Astaroth attack earlier this year, says that these attacks are considered challenging to detect as the full process of the deployment and execution of the malware is by way of those Windows LOL bins. He says, quote, to the average person, this activity can seem like a legitimate Windows activity because it's being executed by Windows processes, end quote.
That's the scary thing, is we trust these tasks.
Yes.
And so we think that it's safe.
Well, and I mean, I think of the average computer user. I mean, you've got, take for instance my parents, who didn't grow up in the computer age. And so, I get a phone call going, the computer's making a funny noise. What do I do?
Right.
Well, what does that mean? So
where do I
them,
insert the Bitcoin?
Well, yeah, like they trust Windows. And so something like this, they're not going to have any clue. And next thing you know, their system's compromised and they're not going to know.
And it's an email attachment that comes in.
Right.
I mean, that's one way that it can infiltrate the system. So if that email attachment is clicked by anyone on your network, be it a business or home, then you're compromised.
Yep.
And who knows what the payload is.
That's scary.
That's and you think about, okay, well, a small payload like key logging, how many of us ever put our credit card number into the clipboard or confidential information? Maybe we copy something to the clipboard to paste it into a website to log in.
Dash line for.
Yeah, but a lot of us use the clipboard, like copy and paste,
Yeah.
for a password or something like that.
Exactly.
I'm notorious for it. Maybe I need to be a little more wary of it now, thinking about these keyloggers.
Yep.
Because what do? I don't have LastPass installed on a public computer,
Right.
but I can log into LastPass using a private window, copy my password, and then paste it to get into a site. But now I'm thinking, maybe that's really bad practice because I don't know if somebody previously had clicked on one of those keyloggers.
Right. On
Right.
a public computer, yeah, you don't know.
On
what
any
to-
computer.
yeah.
Could be any computer.
That's true.
Who knows where the information is going now? So,
Oh, it's scary.
sorry to scare you folks. Do you have different news for us?
Different news.
Something a little less ominous than somebody hacking our networks.
Right, exactly. The Raspberry Pi 4, announced 2 weeks ago, is the Raspberry Pi Foundation's first ever USB-C device. And, well, they made a pretty hefty mistake. As it turns out, the Pi 4 has a non-compliant USB-C charging port and doesn't work with as many chargers as it should. Thanks to the open nature of Raspberry Pi, even the schematics are online. Tyler Ward was able to discover that Raspberry Pi didn't design the USB-C port correctly. 2 CC pins on a USB-C port are supposed to each get their own 5.1K OHMS resistor, but Raspberry Pi came up with its own circuit design that allows them to share a single resistor. This is not a compliant design and breaks compatibility with some of the more powerful USB-C chargers out there. Whether a USB-C charger works with the Pi 4 has to do with whether it uses an E-marked cable. E-marked cables are full-featured USB-C cables with chips inside that negotiate power management, accessory modes, data rates, and other communication specs. Cool stuff, right? But since the Pi 4's USB-C port is wired incorrectly, these smart cables will detect it as an audio adapter accessory and refuse to charge them. Benton Leung, an engineer at Google and one of the internet's foremost USB-C implementation experts, said, quote, instead of trying to come up with some clever circuit, hardware designers should simply copy the figure from the USB-C specs exactly. This isn't simply a rough guideline of the way one would make a USB-C receptacle. It's actually normative, meaning mandatory, required by the spec in order to call your system a compliant USB-C power sync. Just copy it, end quote. Raspberry Pi co-founder Eben Upton admits the issue, saying, quote, I expect this will be fixed in a future board revision, but for now users will need to apply one of the suggested workarounds. It's surprising this didn't show up in our quite extensive field testing program, end quote. The suggested workarounds are just to use a non-E-marked cable like the official Pi 4 charger. The Pi 4 is not the first high-profile device to get the USB-C spec wrong. The Nintendo Switch also has a non-compliant USB-C port and has had issues with certain USB-C cables as a result.
It's unfortunate.
My kids would say, oof.
I am confused why one would want to mess with it if it is designed
With
in a
the
way
spec?
that works.
Well, the USB-C spec, I mean, if they wanted to use a single 5.1 ohm resistor instead of two,
But
that's just they're just,
but why?
as was said, like they're trying to
Does it
manipulate.
cost that much less to make it that
if it's
way?
a
Like, is
penny,
it,
how much is a 5.1 ohm resistor? 2 pennies?
Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a weird choice to make, right? Like, I feel like...
But in hindsight, I think that they're also, I mean, I feel like a certain amount of sympathy for the creators
Sure.
Yes.
in this, because I've released products and made mistakes.
Right.
And as was said, even said that, well, we can't believe that this didn't show up in our
Right.
testing. Like, we tested this. We sent this out to testers, but probably each of them used the Raspberry Pi provided charger.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everyone looked thoroughly. It didn't take long, right?
Yeah.
It probably took that first person who plugged it into the charger that they bought. You know, they bought an expensive charger because it's got more power and it's got that special cable.
Yeah.
And that was the first person to realize, oh, something's not right here. And so now we're going to look at, well, what's the problem?
Right.
Why isn't it working?
But I mean, like, stuff like that's going to happen. I mean, such is life.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, is it really going to make a massive difference to the average user? Probably not.
I think because you can just switch cables, you'll be okay,
Right.
Yeah.
right? You can move on.
Yeah.
And I think what we see here too is that, and time will tell, but I suspect that it's only going to take a very short amount of time. I mean, they'll sell out of the first run.
Right.
They'll
Fix it.
correct it in the next run, and it won't take long for the next revision of the Raspberry Pi 4 to come out with the correction,
Yeah.
and then problem solved.
Exactly. And then the first one will be like a collector's item.
I was thinking
There
the
you
same
go.
thing.
This is it's like that. It's like your MyCloud there
right.
with
Yeah.
the SATA ports.
Or
It's
like
just it's
misprint-
special.
Or misprinted stamps.
Yeah.
or
That's right.
Yeah.
Such. Somebody will collect it, and it'll be great.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I'm going to jump right into the cryptocurrency report. Just want to look at how the crypto market has been responding over the past week. And these numbers are based on what I found at about 1800 hours Eastern Time on Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. So in the past 7 days, Bitcoin still gained. Now, today it's down a little bit versus like previous days, but since last week we're up $539 US. So we're sitting at $11,930.02. Facebook Libre still sitting at a whopping $0. Doesn't exist
They're
yet,
very
but we are
stable.
monitoring it when it comes out. Yeah, it's very
They're the
stable.
least volatile right now.
Yeah, if you're going to invest in Libre. It will cost you nothing. Litecoin, I'll take 1 billion of them. Litecoin is down, losing $10.83 US at 107.75. Ethereum is at 289.49. Another loser, going down 4.77, I should say. And Monero is gaining a little bit. Gaining, are you ready for this? Mm-hmm. $6.66.
Oh.
Monero is the mark of the beast. $94.78 is its US dollar value this week. Torque, which was previously known as Stellite, gaining just a little bit, 0.06 thousandths of a cent, and Turtle Coin up to 1.22 thousandths of a cent. Remember, if you are going to mine, invest in cryptocurrency in any way, shape, or form, the market is always volatile. It never closes. You never know what's going to happen next. Only invest what you can afford to lose.
Big thanks to Roy W. Nash and our community of viewers for submitting stories to us this week. Thanks for watching the Category 5.TV newsroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe for all your tech news with a slight Linux bias. And for more free content, be sure to check out our website. From the Category 5.TV newsroom, I'm Sasha Rickman.
And I'm Robbie Ferguson.
And I'm Jeff Weston.
We've got to take a really quick break. Stick around. Welcome back. This is Category 5 Technology TV. It's been episode number 616.
Getting up there.
It's been fabulous having Bo here from ameriDroid and his wife Rosemary. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio, and I hope you all enjoyed the show. I want to also say thank you to everyone who has supported us on Patreon this week or through any means, whether you're shopping through our partner links or if you are actually supporting us on Patreon. You can find out more about that process, which is very, very simple, and you just give as little as $1 a month to our free broadcast to support us. You can do so at patreon.com/category5. Category 5 TV is on Twitter. You'll find us at Category 5 TV, or me personally, I am at Robbie Ferguson, and incidentally, I follow back. So if you'd like to increase your followers by 1 and perhaps see a couple of likes on your timeline by the world-famous webcaster Robbie Ferguson.
You don't follow me. I feel like...
Oh, you're on Twitter?
I feel like you're promising to the world.
Did you follow him?
Did I follow?
Yeah, I follow back.
Yes, I fell onto Twitter, yeah.
I follow back, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't follow you on Twitter.
You gotta follow me.
You better do it.
How will you see all those tweets I tweet about you?
Because you tell me about it everywhere else.
We're on YouTube. You can guess that we would be there. Category 5 TV. Just do a quick search for us. Or you can find our edited down clips, linuxtechshow.com. Make sure you subscribe to both of those to get our notifications. We're also on the Roku channel store, and you can get us on Plex or Kodi via github.com/cat5tv. Check out the repositories there. And of course, our main website ties everything together. You'll find that at category5.tv. Thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you both for being here. Sasha, great job with the B-roll. So all the handheld cam shots that you saw tonight, that was Sasha. How's your arm feeling?
Yeah, good.
Those studio cameras are pretty heavy, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wait till you see what I've done.
Yeah. I'm going to watch this back afterwards. It's a shot of the floor. It's just Sasha's shoes.
Thank you out of the actual show.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for being a trooper.
You're more than welcome.
Have a wonderful week, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.